we brought the neon sign over for this.
That's right.
Yeah, I got one down here.
All right.
Very nice.
Good vibes, yeah. Oh, you guys got your beers? I actually have a sore throat today. I got done recording a module, so I'm
it's okay, man. It's okay. Hey, you're wearing an Unfazed Review shirt. Hell yeah, man.
That's awesome.
Yeah, you guys sent it to me. I was like, fuck yeah, I'll wear it.
That's
cool.
right. Yeah, I'm glad it fits. That's great, man.
It does. It actually fits really well. I was thinking about cutting off the sleeves, but I'm like, nah, I don't know.
Do whatever you want, man. It's your shirt.
It's awesome,
yeah, the fabric.
Cool. Yeah, I'll rock it at the gym.
I'm glad you like that. It's good, man. All right, cool.
Yeah, is this your logo? It's actually a cool design on there.
I designed that, yeah.
I was trying to put my camera back to get it more in frame because usually it's like right up on my face, but I don't think.
I appreciate that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, man. Actually, that's sick, man. Thank you. Yeah, I designed that. It was actually literally just the neon sign, and then we had a lot of success with dead mall videos, and there's been quite a few. Like our biggest one on our channel.
I like those.
Thanks.
Yeah, I've seen those come up in my feed. Yeah, those are interesting.
Thanks, man. Yeah, we had one
I
that
can binge on those.
Yeah, we had one that hit pretty big, and it was definitely the most successful video on the channel yet. It's at like 136,000 views, and from that point, I was like, okay, I need to lean a little bit more into the malls, which I like doing anyway, and that's kind of where that logo comes from. I got these old pictures of mannequins, and then I added another one that's with the head cut off and distorted, and that's kind of just in reference to dead malls and dead retail. That's what that logo is. Yeah.
All right, cool. Are you guys recording already? Because this would actually probably be pretty good too.
Yeah,
you just edit this all up, right?
Yeah, definitely. So anyway, that was kind of just us talking a little pre-show, but I guess we can do an intro. But yeah, that all stays in for sure. Anyway, guys, welcome to the Unfazed Review podcast. I'm Ben Steerick.
I'm Emmett.
And this is our special guest, Jaren Scott, back for round 2. This is actually your second time on the pod, so we appreciate it. Oh, and here's Wedge.
It sure is.
Emmett's
the official mascot of the pod.
He's high on life and Mountain Dew. But anyway, man, so thank you so much, and thank you for rocking the Unfazed shirt. Much appreciated,
Yeah, this is awesome. Yeah, definitely.
Glad you like it, man. Yeah, we got a couple beers. And tell us what's going on. I know you I actually wanted to kick the podcast off with one question for you. What is your earliest Halloween memory, and then also your favorite Halloween memory? They can be separate.
Or the same.
Ooh, I think the earliest one, I've got a couple. The earliest one, I think I was in first grade. Like, I can look back and see pictures of me wearing Halloween costumes with my brothers and stuff, but I don't really remember those. But in first grade, it was 1993, so I'm aging myself here, but it snowed that night, and it was an early snow that year. And I remember being out, and it was really cold, and not a lot of kids were out trick-or-treating, but we cleaned up in candy that year. So that was probably my earliest one.
What was your costume that year? Do you remember your costume?
I think I was Batman.
Sick, all right.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. That was early 90s. Yeah, that might have been the Michael Keaton version of Batman. So I was probably Batman.
That's great.
And then the weirdest one, I was in 8th grade, so a little too old to be trick or treating. But I was out with my siblings; they're younger than me, so I was kind of taking them around the neighborhood, and we saw some strange lights in the sky. Multiple lights and configurations, and then they'd blink, and then they'd be in a different configuration. They'd zoom real fast, and I grew up in an area that was actually kind of a UFO hotspot because we did the plutonium for the bombs during the Cold War.
Oh, wow.
And Hanford, Washington, actually did the plutonium for Trinity, and then the second bomb that ended the war. I was at Fat Boy. So we always had, it was always been a UFO hotspot in the early 90s. There was crop circles all the time. We had a giant fireball that fell into the river once when I was a kid, and everyone saw it, and they shut off the scene.
What city was that, Jaren, that you grew up in?
Tri-Cities, Washington.
Okay. Wow.
And then Hanford was the site that enriched the plutonium for the Cold War atomic weapon production.
That's crazy.
So a lot of UFO activity. Technically, UFO is just an unidentified flying object. We certainly couldn't identify what the hell we were seeing, but everyone saw it. So multiple lights and different configurations. They'd blink and they'd be somewhere else, and they'd zip across the sky. So that was pretty cool. I think at one point we went out to my grandparents' house. My grandpa was like, "Oh, they're just Russian satellites." Like, no, dude, no, they're not. Like
something else.
We all know this. Like there had been activity all through the 90s at that point, so we're like, all right, there's something going on there. But that's probably the coolest Halloween memory.
Oh, that's very cool. Yeah, I saw a unidentified flying object actually this past 4th of July. In Phoenix, out in the backyard. I was with my family, and we were just watching the fireworks. And
that's a hot spot too. Phoenix,
so bizarre. Yeah, so bizarre. And it was one of those where obviously you had a lot of stuff in the sky because it was 4th of July, so you had a shit ton of fireworks going off, especially in our neighborhood over there. And I looked up kind of to the right of the moon. I actually released a video on it back after it happened because I was so like excited about it. And I saw this like emerald green light flashing up in the sky. And I was out there barbecuing with my parents, and they saw it up in the sky as well. And we're like, what is that? And it was way too high to be a drone. Like, you can tell the difference, you know? And this was like way the hell up there, like beyond the level of like a commercial plane. It was like way up there. And it was moving really, really erratic and really fast. And then it just stopped. And then it started blinking across the sky, and it covered just so many miles in such a short amount of time. Came back and then disappeared. And I was like, dude, what the hell was that? And it was too far to record it. My phone was in the house charging, so I ran in real quick for like 20 seconds, got it, came out, tried recording it, but it was gone. I couldn't catch it, but saw it with my own eyes, and it was pretty cool, man. And obviously we have history of the Phoenix Lights and stuff here, so you never know. You never know, dude.
Well, it's crazy now. The government's actually coming out, or the U.S. government is coming out and saying, "Yep, they exist." You know, there's conspiracy theorists where it's probably a distraction. It's probably a bit of both. But I lived down in Mexico City, and I was dating a flight attendant for a while, and she told me that down here, that in the aviation industry, everyone has seen them. There's no discussion down here. They do exist. They did something recently where they brought like the alien bodies up from Peru. A lot of people are saying that was some sort of like a television type stunt, but. The Mexican government and their military has really been forthcoming with the public throughout most of history. They release Air Force pilot footage all the time, and then again, the girl I was dating a while back, she exclaimed that she said everyone has seen them, that they are kind of freaky and they are kind of cool, and it's just accepted that yes, they do exist.
That's amazing, dude. Yeah, I think enough time has passed, and it's so weird. Like back when that happened, I think in like 1997, the mayor at the time of Phoenix, his name was Fife Symington, really weird name, and he actually saw it. And now, if you watch documentaries about it, like he comes out now that he's out of politics and he's a much older guy.
It's always in the docs.
Yeah, and he's like, oh yeah, I saw it. He's like, here, it was really intense. He's like, you know, I know exactly what I saw. But at the time, he was like, you know, worried about his, you know, public appearance and re-election and all that bullshit. So he made a big mockery of it. And he said, you know, he held this press conference and he had these dudes come in dressed as aliens, take him away in handcuffs, and made this big like scene and like a big joke out of it. And then, you know, decades later, he says he really regrets that and feels bad about it because like he saw it himself, you know.
It's funny. It's a huge part of pop culture, but most people have those stories. And again, a lot of people, when they say UFO, they think aliens from outer space. It's just an identified flying object. So you can see a standard, like some experimental military aircraft or some airplane that's way far away. Maybe it's cloudy. Maybe there's smoke in the sky and like the lighting's kind of off. Like technically, if you can't identify it, it is a UFO. But everyone's seeing crazy stuff up in the skies.
Oh, absolutely. Did you ever see anything after that beyond your trick-or-treating experience with your siblings?
No, not that I remember. I think things kind of died down. They eventually decommissioned the site. There is some domestic energy production, but as far as like weapons grade plutonium production, they haven't been doing that in years.
That's wild.
It's crazy.
That's wild. Yeah, I mean it's a hot spot out here for sure. And I think one day, at least on our Unfazed Frights channel, my second channel, that's where
just gonna say that.
Yeah,
gotta go.
I gotta do it.
Yeah.
I focus on, you know, obviously, you know, paranormal stuff and everything like that, but I think UFOs could fall into that kind of weird category of the unknown, the unexplained. And you know, we have some hot spots out here I think we could drive out to where the sky is clear, maybe do like an overnight trip and do a video out of it. I think the audience would really like that. It could be cool.
What got you into the paranormal stuff? From the abandoned malls, yeah.
Interesting question.
I love those topics.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah. So I've always kind of like had one toe dipped into it. Just, you know, I grew up. My mom was always a big fan of paranormal stuff, ghost stories. Grew up watching, you know, shows like Ghost Hunters and stuff like that. But I really, really personally got into it when I was about 19, going on 20. I worked at this hotel in downtown Phoenix called the Hotel San Carlos, and it's one of the oldest hotels in downtown Phoenix. And it was always, you know, allegedly very haunted. So I started working there, and I did valet when I was like 19. And on the weekends, they let me do the ghost tours because I was like, oh, you know, there's someone who would come in and do it occasionally. And I was like really interested. So I learned all the stories. And then I started doing the ghost tours on the weekends. And the more and more that I worked there, I only worked there for about a year, like age 19 to 20. And I just saw a lot of weird shit. There was a lot of stuff when I was there that really opened my mind to the paranormal and made me think, oh man, maybe these aren't just stories, you know. One of the first ones that I had happen that really kind of freaked me out and made me realize something's going on was I was down in the basement. And it was such a weird job. In the winter, you'd have to go down and bleed the boiler. So like literally, they'd send me down. It was like working at like a hotel from The Shining, but a really old building. It was built in 1927, and I'd go down to the basement in the winter and go to these different parts of the boiler and let off steam so it wouldn't have too much pressure build up. And it was creepy as shit. It was like this creepy, weird back area of the basement.
It's always the basement,
dude. It was fucking terrifying. I mean,
or the attic.
It was a weird job, but I was young, And anyway, I'd do that, and I remember one time coming out after letting the steam off the boiler and heading out to this middle area, and I saw out of my peripheral vision the shape of someone walking into the maintenance man's area. There was like this maintenance area where they had a bunch of tools and stuff. And I thought, oh, it's Joseph, the maintenance man. There was like one maintenance dude that worked there. So I walked over just to say what's up. And I went around the corner and the door was all locked up. And it was like one of those doors that was like, not barn doors, but like those double doors where like the top swings open and the bottom can swing open. So there's a little gap where you could see inside. And I looked inside, pitch black, deadbolt lock on it. Like no one was in there. So I'm like, okay, like what did I just see? Who walked in there, And that happened in that same area another time as well. And I was actually on a ghost tour, conveniently. And I saw what looked like a kid walk from one side of the room into the maid's break room. They had like a cleaning woman's break room. And the weird thing about that room is it had automatic lights. So you'd go in and like it was like motion detector lights. And so I saw what looked like a kid walk in there, and I thought, okay, maybe some kid wandered down the stairs and got separated from his parents and is wandering around. So I walked over there, pitch black in there, and there's only one way in and out, one door in and out. Flipped on the lights, like nobody in there. So that was super weird. A few other stories there. One time we were on a ghost tour and they wanted to see the Mae West Suite. A bunch of old Hollywood stars stayed at that hotel, like Clark Gable, Marilyn Monroe, I think Humphrey Bogart, a bunch of people like that from that era. And so one of the suites was the Mae West Suite, so I took him inside to see it, and I unlocked the door, and I heard someone snoring super loud. And so I'm like, oh shit, like we're walking in on someone. So I like backed out, and then I'm like, okay, but I don't think anyone's supposed to be in this room right now. And I called the front desk, I had a walkie-talkie, and they're like, yeah, nobody's staying in there. So I'm like, okay, shit. So I flipped the lights on, went inside, nobody in the room. And I even checked, I'm like, hey, is someone staying next door? Is there someone upstairs? And it was like a really dead part of the year, and they're like, nope, nobody there. So just stuff like that. Very, very strange stuff. A couple other stories, like out by the pool, some weird stuff would happen, doors would slam, just a lot of weird shit. And that really, really sparked my interest. And from that point on, I was just like super aware of the paranormal.
With that kind of stuff, were you scared? Were you excited? Were you elated? Were you anxious? Was it a mix of emotions? Because I've had some experiences with that stuff too, and I always tell people, it's like you can't believe your eyes. You think your brain's playing a trick on you, but there is a physical response, and you can sense it. And usually, thank God, when I've seen stuff, other people have corroborated the story, where they're like, like, did you see that, man? Like, I'm not going, yeah, there's something here.
Yeah.
And I've got quite a few stories like that. Like my parents told me once when I was older that, or I was like 12 years old. My folks told me, oh, when you were a little kid, you used to have an imaginary friend. I originally lived in Texas as a kid. Like, oh, you used to have an imaginary friend, and you always talk to him or whatever. And I had a clear memory of him playing with him and stuff. Like, no, he wasn't imaginary. I thought he was real.
Yeah.
And then and then at some point, I believe my mom told me, she said, oh, well, there was a kid that lived the kid that lived next door, and he actually died in the creek behind our house before you were born, like 6 months before you were born. I was like,
wow.
What was his name? Was it Jake? And she's like, yeah, it was Jake. I'm like, so I kind of got the chills.
Yeah, jeez.
My dad still lives at that house. So I was 15. And I remember I was like laying on the couch in the living room, turned off the TV to go to bed or something like that, and then looked under the little TV stand or table or whatever it was, and I saw it looked like a 3-year-old kid, like just kind of sitting under there looking at me. Wow. And again, it's not like it's like clear as daylight with your eyes, but like there's something there, and in that sense, actually, I do have a pretty clear memory that I did see something. And another time, when I was 17, we're out in the farm, kind of bored, playing around or screwing around or whatever. And we went to an old abandoned house, and the neighbors told us, like, don't go there, don't screw around there. And we went there, and like we were just like throwing rocks at it, being little assholes. And then Eventually, we get back in the car, like we're gonna go, and it's a country house, so like long farm road, for a driveway. And as we're pulling around the house to start heading down this road, all my passengers start freaking out. I was driving, like, oh my god, go, what the hell? And I look out the right side rear passenger window and see like an apparition of like an older kind of indigenous looking lady, just kind of like coming at, like close enough to where she could touch the car, but like walking real slow.
Ooh.
So I floored it. We headed down the end of the driveway, got to the end, and then all of a sudden everything in the car just boom fogged up.
Whoa.
And it was for like 40 minutes. I could, no matter how I did the defroster, no matter how I did the windshield wipers, rolling down the windows up or down, didn't matter. Couldn't see a damn thing. So we couldn't get out of there. Wow. And then eventually, just as quick as it happened, just fog went away, and I'm like, and my friends are like, what the hell was that? So I've had a couple experiences too.
Dude, that's crazy. Was it like a colored fog, like a bluish fog, or was it just straight up fog? Like,
yeah, it was more like a bluish tint, kind of like a hue to it, like kind of like this one here.
Interesting.
But thick, almost like when you're
like ghost plasma.
Yeah, like when your heater core's going out and you get like that kind of, was it like radiator fluid that kind of comes through it as well. It was kind of one of those things. And then give me a moment. I gotta send an Uber location to someone real quick.
No problem, man. No problem.
That's wild, man.
I'm
the guy who wishes stuff like that happened to me.
Now, the best thing, I think we might have talked about
I've got
this.
another story too. Yeah.
I think we might talk about this on the last one. I definitely want to hear the next story, but
for sure.
Emmett, when we first started doing paranormal investigations, like I had done some before him, but when we started doing them on the channel, before Unfazed Frights existed, we just did them on Unfazed Review. And we did, I'd say at least, maybe 4 or 5 on Unfazed Review, and maybe more. And what was the great thing about doing them with Emmett is he originally was a very big skeptic, and in some ways still is. But it's one of the best people to bring with on a ghost hunt, because when something happens, it's like, oh shit, like the reaction from him is like way more. So I mean, that, like, how was that for you coming into ghost hunting, being such a skeptic?
Yeah, I mean, I'm the guy who's 95% of the stuff you see on the internet is bullcrap, and it's like, it's just annoying.
Most of it is.
I want it to be real, right? But I've had a few weird experiences, but nothing enough for me to be like, oh, that's definitely real.
Yeah.
So
that's why we're always searching.
Yeah, and I'm always I'm always the one to want to be like, there's an explanation for this. Yeah. But so that being said, there's been once or twice on some of our ghost hunts where, like you were saying earlier, in the basement, when you think someone goes by and it's so matter of fact, it's not even scary. It's like, oh, that's a person, but then you look over and there's really no one there, and then you're like, oh god,
Yeah.
So I've had a moment like that.
You think your brain's screwing with you, right? Because I was always more on the skeptical side too, and then even as kids, like we'd look back through old photos. There's ones that looks like orbs around my head, or there's one I was 19. I was at a bar down here in Mexico, and I was studying down here. And it was a group photo, but like coming out of my chest, it looked like it should have been cigarette smoke, but it like perfectly wrapped my body. Like it was the weirdest thing. And I've got a brother who's really, it could be. Yeah, I've got a brother who's really into that stuff. So he's like, no, dude, it's exactly this. And I was always real skeptical too. Even like the experience in high school, like we saw something, but I'm like, oh, it could have been in our imagination. We were screwing around. Like we weren't on drugs or drinking or anything. We were pretty good kids, but it was just kind of like, okay, well, maybe we convinced each other that we all saw something collectively. And then as an adult, I had a house for a bit. Again, that site that I worked on, or that I grew up by, the plutonium site, that my first job was out there. First job out of college was out there, working for a defense contractor. So I lived in one of the houses right outside of the site, which was formerly a part of the site, where they had like a bunch of scientists from the end of World War II that were brought over to the U.S. Let's just say that. So one of those houses, it was like a giant dormitory row house. They called it a B house.
They ate a lot of schnitzel?
Yeah, right. Yeah. So the house had like 9 bedrooms, like 2 bathrooms upstairs. The middle area was all open, so it was perfect for parties. And then it had a giant unfinished basement. So we're like, hell yeah, party house right out of college. This is going to be awesome.
Nice.
Lived with a bunch of buddies from high school. Wasn't an awesome experience. Don't live with your high school friends if you're trying to start a career, and they're not. They don't have anything going on.
Yeah.
But that's beside the point. But in that house, it always had a weird vibe, a weird energy. It always felt kind of creepy, but it was a really good deal. Another tip-off. Really good deal. Significantly priced under anything else in the neighborhood. Yeah. Giant house. Hardwood floors, like in pretty good condition.
Bats,
but it just felt creepy.
Yeah.
Just felt always kind of off. I always felt creeped out when I was ever there by myself. I'm like, oh, it's just an old house. And I used to have a rule that any house built before 1950 in the United States is haunted because, especially up in the Northwest, they're made out of wood and it swells. And when the wind hits, like, the air comes in. So like it kind of has that feeling to it already.
Yeah.
So I always thought like, oh, it's just in my head. There's something like it's just me or whatever. It's an old house. That's what old houses do. And then weird things would happen where I'd go downstairs. This is before my roommates moved in. I'd turn out, like, I'm kind of OCD, so I close all the doors and turn off all the lights and, try to conserve energy. So I'd turn off the lights and then I'd go back in the basement in the morning. Lights would be on. I'm like, okay, well, maybe I forgot to turn them off, but I'm kind of OCD about that. I don't forget to turn off the fucking lights. Like they need to be off before I go to bed.
I get it.
So I'm like, okay, yeah, well, that's the weirdest thing. And then I'd start hearing things like a pipe tapping or something. I'm like, oh, it must be the wind. And you're trying to reasonably talk yourself out of it. That's skeptic mind. You're like, oh, it's just the wind. It's autumn, like October when I moved into it. Up where I grew up, we get Chinooks, like, strong winds coming up, warm winds coming up from or Santa Ana winds that come and they blow shit around. And then his roommates got in. There was kind of a negative energy because between myself and my roommates, and I always felt real aggressive towards them, and I'm not an aggressive person. And then I'd start hearing things like I'd start hearing cats crying outside, and it sounded like a cat that was dying or something. So I'd go downstairs, go outside, couldn't find the damn cat. I'm like, oh, okay, well, what was that? And then later I'd hear babies crying. So it was an older house that had the clothing chute in it, and then it went into like a giant cement kind of sink in the middle of the basement, and it was like cemented in there, so you couldn't get rid of the sink. It was probably an original feature of the house. Yeah. And so I'd hear like crying babies coming up the clothing chute. And then at one point, my roommates started hearing it too. So we used to refer to it, a horrible joke, but like, oh, maybe someone had an abortion in that sink back in the day. So we called it like the dead baby or the abortion sink. Nice. And it was kind of a joke. It was kind of a joke amongst the roommates. And then at one point, I was working in the U.S., but I traveled to Latin America a lot, and I was actually down here in Mexico, and I told my brother, like, hey, watch the house while everyone's out of town for Christmas. A lot of the roommates had gone home or whatever. He's like, hey, just check on the house, and he told me that this was later down the line. He told me something happened, like there's a picture on the wall, and that the picture fell off, and he put it back up, and then it fell off, and then he said he put it back up, and then it like was thrown off the wall. Geez. And he didn't tell me this at the time because he said at the time he thought whatever, he was trying to explain it away. So eventually it got to the point more and more stuff started happening. I started getting really stressed out, started like hating the house, started hating my roommates. And there's a point where I had a buddy come over for like a little party in the basement, and we did a bonfire behind the house, and he was sitting there. He's like, I don't know why, man, but since I came in this house, like I seriously want to hurt the roommates, like one of them in particular. And then we went inside the house. We were sitting in front of a fire in like the old cast iron fireplace in the main living room. It was a huge house. And we were sitting there, and he's like, I think we should kill like this specific roommate. And me at the time, I'm like, that's a good idea. Like, let's go down this thought train, and then eventually my rational self took over. It's like, what am I doing? I'm not aggressive. I'm not violent. I never want to commit harm upon anyone.
Put down the shovel.
I've gotten like in fights when I was a kid, and it actually feels pretty terrible to like hit someone in the face with your bare fist. Like, last thing I want to do is harm my roommates. So my buddy, he's like, I was like, whoa, what are we talking about? He's like, yeah, dude, this is weird. Like, let's go. And eventually we left. We got like a hotel, and then we ended up becoming roommates. And it's actually a buddy who joined recently my private group, so you guys will get to know him soon, and we can tell a story. And that's from his angle.
And that's when the murders began, right?
Yeah, right. But no, we eventually got out of the house. A lot of the roommates were they're back on rent or whatever. So I'm like, hey, just vacate the house. They were all kind of spooked too. At that point, I started telling them, like, guys, something's going on in this house. Like, is it just me? And then they all started sharing stories too. I'm like, okay, cool. Let's get the hell out of here. We got out of there. I didn't take a loss on the house. Didn't make any money. Ended up finding a buyer, like an underprivileged, like minority family. I disclosed it. I'm like, hey, man, there's some weird stuff in this house. Like, dude, it's such a good deal. I'm just stoked to get in here. I'm like, you got little baby girls, just letting you know. It's a weird house, just off my conscience. And since then, I lived in California for almost 10 years.
And you said
whenever I'd look at a...
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Jaren.
Oh, go ahead.
That house you said, the dead baby sink house, was that's the name of the podcast, the Dead Baby.
Yeah, exactly.
Laundry Chute podcast. That was in Mexico, you said, right?
No, that was in Washington State.
That was in Washington.
Okay. It was near that Hanford site. Yeah. So
gotcha. Okay.
I figured probably some bad energy, just kind of knowing the story of who was housed at that house. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Scientists with very thick accents pronounce their W's like V's at the end of World War II. Who were,
Gotcha.
they were pretty much given the option: you will be tried for crimes you committed during the war, or you'll come build bombs for the Americans, like like Werner von Braun, like war criminal. But we'll forget about that if you fly us to the moon and we beat the Soviets. So it's kind of one of those. That story's kind of weaved in there. So
That situation.
yeah, I always figured it's just like bad energy or something. So since then, after that, I lived in California for like a decade. And whenever I'd rent a new apartment, I'd always tell people, I'd always ask like the leasing agent or the landlady or landlord or whatever, is this place haunted? Has there been any murders here? Is there reports of it being haunted? And my friends would always think I was joking, but then it turns out it's somewhere in some statute in California, they actually have to disclose that.
They have to tell you,
yeah, which I thought was pretty cool.
And it does mark down prices a lot, which is hilarious to me. But yeah, it really does affect price.
Yeah, or like, Californians are so trippy. Like, it'd probably drive up prices. Or this condo I have here, like, it's a big, hardwood floors and all that stuff. And then before I rented it here, which down in Mexico, like the lady thought I was kind of weird, but there is a lot of superstition down here. I was like, before I sign the lease, can I spend the night at the house by myself? Didn't turn the power on yet, didn't do anything. Brought a little blanket, just laid on the floor by myself, just to make sure there's no weird shit.
Pick up the
before
vibes.
I lock myself into a lease. And since it's no joke, since that Washington house, that is my best practice before renting a new place.
Smart.
Which I was going to ask you, like. It was weird in that house situation. It wasn't like I was scared. I thought I was going crazy at first, and then it's just kind of you're second guessing yourself, and then you feel aggressive. So that's why I wanted to ask you guys, or that's why I asked you guys earlier. Yeah. Like, do you get scared? Is there anything you're like, oh my god? But for me, it's not like the movies where it's like, bah, ghost pops out. Like, oh fuck, what was that? It's kind of like, I lost my keys, and I put them where I always put them, and then I walked away, and I looked for them, and then I came back, and they're there. Yeah. And then I try to convince myself, oh, it's called borrower syndrome. Like, it's a psychological term. I must have borrower syndrome. Maybe it's because I'm stressed out. And then other people tell you, like, no, I don't know what it was. Don't care. The house is fucking weird. I still have, like, weird dreams about it sometimes if I'm stressed out. Like, don't want to go near any of that again.
Interesting. Yeah, so that's... Great story, by the way. Thank you. To answer your question about do we get scared?
Yeah. Now I want to know, like, okay, what was the experience?
No, it totally depends. So to be totally like fully transparent, like when I was like 19, 20, working at the San Carlos, those situations I wasn't immediately scared. It was more just kind of like, as you said, matter of fact. Like when I thought I saw the maintenance dude walking into the maintenance quarters, like I wasn't scared at all because I was like, oh, I want to go say what's up. Like he's a nice guy, and it was like one of those where I was just like, oh, imagine like, we're looking straight ahead and just like right out of your peripheral, and it's just like, I don't have the best vision. I wear contacts.
Yeah, your brain registers.
But at the same time, like I know what I saw something made me walk over there, and I went over, and then the fear didn't really set in until after I realized, okay, there's nobody here. Like the door's locked. There's only one way in and out. That's fucking weird. So at that point, then it's kind of like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna get the hell out of here, and then I ran up the stairs to get back. We have unlimited Zoom, but it's saying running out of Zoom time.
Oh no!
I pay for the Pro. The Pro though. Are we signed in on? Are we signed in on our Unfazed?
Yeah. If we have to take a quick break, I have a lady friend arriving in 2 minutes. So I'll have to go down and get her.
Okay, cool. Right. Yeah, let's take.
We'll wrap back.
Let's
take a $5.
Yeah, let's meet back in 5.
Okay, cool.
We'll do a brief intermission.
Just shoot me the new link.
Yeah, we'll do. All right, cool.
All right, cool, guys. We're good.
You're good. Yeah.
There we go. Perfect. Okay, all right, and we're back from that brief but necessary intermission. Are we recording?
We are recording.
Wonderful, beautiful, fantastic. All right, so where were we? Stuff that doesn't scare us.
Ghosts, haunted house, yeah.
So yeah, to answer your question though, usually I would say 9 times out of 10, when it actually is something like real, where I'm like, what was that? I'm not really that scared. It's just more like, oh, what was that? Like I'm like surprised or like curious, and then once I see that like, oh, nobody's there, and like the situation like really dawns on me, then I get scared, where I'm like, oh, let's get the hell out of here. That's freaky. Emmett had a good story of something that happened to us this summer. I'd say maybe like 2 months ago that we were both at. That was super interesting.
Yeah, we vlogged the Yuma Territorial Prison on our way to California, and we were vlogging the dark cell, which is the solitary confinement, sort of like a little cave. There's bats in there and everything, and it's small enough. It's like really the size of this room, I think, more or less. Maybe a little bit smaller, but yeah.
Just pitch black, one little hole in the top for air and for them to drop food down. And the guys, back in the Old West and early 1900s would have been chained to the center of it, and they just would have been locked in there for however long,
Yeah.
depending on their punishment.
Oh, sounds fun.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just rock and chain in
Fantastic.
the middle and some bats, and that was it.
Yeah, there were bats
And-
in there while we were in there.
Yeah, and we were vlogging it, and we had all our equipment out and everything, and yeah, it was one of those things. It was so matter of fact, and we caught it on film and everything. It's sort of unfortunate that it's only audio, but it was only audio. We heard like as clear as day, just a breath, an exhale next to us, and we were clearly the only two in the room. It wasn't so dark that you couldn't see, but it was pretty dark, and we just heard.
Yeah.
And it was like
It was loud enough where it
Yeah.
was like, I was here, Emmett was on my left,
And we heard it
and it
from,
sounded like it
over
was
here.
like
Yeah.
right in front of
We
me,
both
like
heard it
someone
from
that
the
was like a few inches taller than
Yeah.
me, being exasperated.
very
like,
human exhale. Yeah,
And it was
we
like
both
one of
just
those-
looked over, and then we were like, "What the fuck?"
yeah, and it was immediate, and that was one of those
Yeah.
where immediately got goosebumps.
Yeah, yeah.
I was scared,
So
but I was
you get
intrigued.
you get the chills, but it's not like, oh my god, a ghost is trying to kill me.
Right,
You know,
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
your adrenaline gets going. Like, what the hell is that?
Exactly,
You get those goosebumps, but I always wonder if the goosebumps are more of an effect of like the actual presence being there, or
The electricity.
a lot of times too. I know people have different belief systems, so for me, sometimes like, well, maybe it's all in my head. Maybe it's part of the collective consciousness. Maybe I tapped into the astral plane, the spiritual plane, whatever that looks like based on your belief system. But at the end of the day, it's like something's there, and I don't know what it is.
Right.
But like,
Yeah.
I know I'm not imagining things. I'm very imaginative. I can conjure up very creative things in my head. But I do know that divide between reality and something else. And then.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, as I've gotten older, I've started developing more of the spiritual side of myself, and I think you can tap into it. I think you can develop those faculties to kind of tap into that, because there's certain meditative practices I can do, or even certain substances I can take that kind of get me more dialed into that frequency to where I'm more receptive to those things. And a lot of times, like, well, do I want to open that world up to myself? Like, do I want to bring in the good and the bad? Or so a lot of times, like, me personally, like, I usually don't like to screw with that stuff. I do live in Mexico. They're really superstitious down here, but things like black magic or Santeria, people are like, oh, let's go do that. I'm like, nope, not me. I don't want to bring that shit home with me. Like,
Yeah.
again, either I'm inviting myself into something else, like a new dimension, the astral plane, the spiritual world, and I'm opening a portal for that to come in, or I'm putting that stuff in my head, and then I'm going to imagine things. Either way, I just don't want that to be a part of my reality.
I totally get that. I do have a ritual that I do now after I do a ghost hunt or do any kind of investigation like that, where I make a point to go to one more place before I go home. So let's say I do a paranormal investigation at a haunted hotel. After I'm done doing that, I make sure, instead of going directly home, it's like, all right, even if I don't need to, I'm going to pop into CVS, or I'm going to pop into Target, or I'm going to pop into, even if it's just a gas station, like I'm going to spend a few minutes there, walk around, interact with somebody, make sure I'm in a lit up place with other people. And I try to do that. And sometimes if it's a heavy one, like a heavy cemetery exploration or something like that, I'll go to 2 places before I go home. Doesn't matter where it is, doesn't matter, if it's a Walmart, like anything, even if I don't need anything, just a place to walk around and kind of dispel or, get rid of the energy that I feel like I might have potentially picked up on. And that's just something I do, just kind of like a superstitious thing,
That makes sense.
Yeah, well, I've always wondered, like, what necessarily is that? And again, this is kind of the skeptic brain. I mean, is it just like a piece of energy that exists in some different plane that can penetrate through to our plane in like blips or moments of time? Or the reason I ask is because this place, if you go to like an old battleground site like Gettysburg, you go to the Holocaust Museum, like there's a pressure, there's a weight there, and even if you were to just quick cut me from this moment and then boom, all of a sudden I'm in that place, and you don't know what the place is, you can feel it in the air. I've been in places before where I walk in and I'm like, I don't like the vibe here, and I don't know what it is. And to the converse, my brother and I, we went to Israel this summer for a while, did the extended fasting, went to all the spiritual sites. Like, amazing world. Like, you go to the Wailing Wall and you touch it, you feel something. Okay, and it could just be, hey, for thousands of years, all of these people that this was their highest belief, put that energy into the wall, and then by me touching it, like, I'm tapping into that. It could be just that. It could be a holy place. I don't know. I'm not necessarily religious, but there's something amazing about that place, which when this thing happened last week, like it really kind of personally touched me, because we spent some time in Israel, really kind of understanding that area.
You guys went
And
in a
then at
good
one
time compared to now, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we went to Palestine too. So my God, if we were like,
Wow.
I was just there a few weeks ago. So like,
Really?
if we didn't time our trip right,
Damn.
I'd be on CNN, like my hands tied in the back of a fucking
Jesus,
truck or
yeah.
something.
Damn, dude.
But it was weird, like crossing into Palestine. You could feel the tension in the air. You
Really?
could, a dark, heavy energy. Like if it did not feel good just walking around the streets, but there's some Christian holy sites there too. So there's this weird kind of exchange between the big three religions to where they kind of allow safe passage to each other's holy sites. You don't ever hear about it on the news, but like the Temple Mounts in Israel, but like Jesus is like Bethlehem's in Palestine. So like we got safe passage, and the Muslims get safe passage too. So when you go to the holy sites, it's like, oh, okay, like you can feel that it's a holy site. There's something about this.
Wow.
All these people collectively, their highest belief, they brought this thing into physical manifestation, and you feel a presence. But when you're out like walking around the streets and all you see like the women are the eyes, and they're like their eyes of hatred just peering into your soul, you're like, oh, like, I don't know.
Wow.
That's when you
You don't
look
want
at
to look
him.
at me. I don't want to look at you either.
That's
Like,
when you look at him and you're like, hey, baby.
yeah, exactly. Like let's practice day game in Palestine. Not a good idea, guys. But what I'm getting at, like, I don't know if it's like a side. I don't know if it's a side of us, like a sixth sense or something. I believe there is something to that. There's multiple dimensions. You can dial into certain frequencies.
Yeah.
Not to advocate drug use, but there are substances you can take. When people tell me, "Oh, I don't believe in God," I'm like, "Well, I'll take this, and you'll see God."
Yeah.
Like, you'll see him right now, and you'll understand that there is something bigger than ourselves out there.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily know what that is. I don't think anyone knows what it
Exactly.
is. That's
Yeah.
what causes a lot of conflict. Everyone thinks they know what it is, but I think we can all agree, like, there's something. You know,
For
we've
sure.
all had these experiences, like with the UFO thing, the ghost thing,
Yeah.
spiritual thing. There's things that we can't quite explain that everyone, humanity-wise, collectively, is like, what is that? You know,
Yeah,
there's something there.
Well, I'm glad. Yeah, I agree totally. I'm glad you guys timed your trip so well, because that could have been horrific.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could have been terrible.
Did you have any point in the trip where you were like, hey, this is a sketchy situation, like aside from what you just talked about? Like, was there anything where it's like, oh, this doesn't feel safe, like we should get the hell out of here?
You know what? I've always had pretty good situational awareness. I traveled to a lot of places that were dangerous when I was younger. Didn't really realize they were dangerous at the time, and then you look back like, oh, there's a military coup in Honduras this year. Like, oh yeah, I was there. They pulled me off a bus, took my passport, and told me get the hell out of the country. So, but in those types of situations, it's like when you have like a near car accident that could be like potentially fatal.
Yeah.
Time slows down. Like you just seem to make all the right decisions in the right moments. All of a sudden, you get on the other end of it. Time speeds back up, and you're like, your heart's racing. Like, oh my God, I almost died right there. It's kind of one of those things. In any of those tense situations, it's like your higher self kind of takes the wheel, and you just cool, calm, collected, Mr. Smooth Operator. So in those situations, I don't, kind of like you were saying, like you don't feel scared at all or anything, and then it's after the fact you're like, oh, dude, that's really sketch. Like, what were we doing there?
Oh, definitely. Well, I'm glad you guys had a successful trip. And my question is, if it seems like, at least back at that point, there was like some level of respect for letting people go to the religious sites, what if everyone now just congregated at those religious sites? Do you think it would just be a bloody massacre?
I still don't understand what the problem is. I think having spent some time there, you understand it is a religious war in modern times. The U.S., based in the Judeo-Christian tradition, but a lot of people are secular now. So I grew up kind of in the secular sense too. Went to church Christmas and Easter. One of those guys. Yeah. And but going there, you get it like, oh, this is a war that's thousands of years old, and then you have the geopolitical stuff, and then you have the economic stuff, like. Obviously, like the regions, like the Gaza Strip, they're highly underdeveloped, and a lot of them are really poor. Like, okay, like 50% of them are unemployed. Well, that's going to lead to higher criminality. So I think there's a bunch of factors that go into it. But
I'm sure, yeah.
At the core of it, it's like it's a thousands of years long religious war, essentially, which I think a lot of people in the West don't quite understand.
Yeah.
And we did the whole fasting thing, and tried to like really get in there and get the experience. And you can dial into that stuff. Like, okay, yeah, there's something to this.
That's wild, man. Well, welcome back, and I'm super glad you guys both got back safe. Like, that's incredible.
Yeah, now in Mexico, which is funny. After coming back from Middle East, you're like, oh, Mexico's so safe. That's great.
That's great. That's something I wanted to touch on a little bit. I don't know how you're doing on time. I know you have company, but are you good for another like 20 minutes to half hour?
Yeah, we're good.
Cool. Let's plan for that. So you're doing the Gringo Guides with you and Moff, right?
Yeah, so actually there's a bit of a separation there. So Moff is still one of my good buddies. I was involved in Richard Cooper's groups, top 1% group, top 10% group. I was an admin for that group. And then I recently decided to start taking my brand in a new direction because I felt kind of limited. The brand before was Men's Shrine. I still have the domain there, still have a lot of the stuff there. I'll eventually fully make that transition. But talking about the red pill, manosphere type topics, I noticed there's a lot of negativity there, and I didn't feel like I was personally growing by continually talking about those topics, or guys asking, how to get more matches on the dating apps. And like, well, I figured this stuff out years ago, and if it's constantly in the forefront of my mind, then I'm putting my energy and focus into something where I already feel like I have a pretty good understanding of it, and I do really well in that area of my life, to where I want to start opening up my creativity to other ideas. So topics like this, when my gal pal was coming up the elevator, I was like, this podcast is awesome. We're talking about like ghosts and aliens. Awesome. Like, it's so great. Like, we know it's normally about like online dating and like how to be a better man and stuff like that, which those are good topics.
Of course, yeah. But sometimes it's like, good to not stay in that one space too much.
Yeah, exactly that. So I'm starting to collaborate with different people kind of outside of those circles. The group I was formerly associated with, there was a creative disagreement there, so we did have a separation. Doesn't mean I don't like the guys, doesn't mean they don't like me. It's just terms like, hey, this is what we're looking to do over here, and you're kind of going off in a different direction. So we don't know if there's really a fit there anymore.
Totally get that.
But part of it sucks. It was a big part of my life for many years. Loved those guys. Did a lot of growing in there. Made some really good friendships. A lot of those friendships, I think, will be lifelong friendships. But it's weird waking up and like not having those groups to log into, or not like having that stuff in my feed. But it also feels kind of liberating too, to where like, okay, well now I can start developing other areas of my personality and not be focused on just this very niche space. So that's kind of where the pivot occurred. Gringo Guides, I'm a white guy who lives in Mexico, speaks Spanish. I live really well down here. I looked at the videos, like my more successful ones, and they're more kind of those topics. And I also think my channel too, I think I did get in YouTube jail for a bit but some of these topics, like I had a video, some women just want to fuck, and you can bleep that if you want to. Okay. Came out the gate super strong, but immediately it was taken down, and then after that, the channel didn't really do anything. It just kind of stagnated. And I saw for the longest time videos come out the gate, immediate spike, because I hit all the metrics. You needed your watch time to a certain point. You need your click-through rate to a certain point. Some thumbnail title, all that has to be in. Keywords, like would rank for keywords. Right out the gate, boom, thousands of views, and then it just flatlines. So I'm like, all right, I'm probably not doing myself any favors here by engaging in this type of content that really, appropriately enough, it's called the red pill, but like it's branded with a scarlet letter. I'm holding my channel back. I'm holding myself back. So I want to start going this new direction, open up new topics. Gringo Guides, I can touch the race topics, the language topics, the living abroad topics, socio-political topics, economic topics, and guides too. So I've been doing like shorts that are just healthy hints, like, hey, how to find something you lost. Well, ask yourself, if you had it right now, where would you put it down? And then like just kind of go through that motion. And usually it's there, for at least for me. So more helpful stuff. The videos are starting to do better. The channel's starting to get an uptick. I do need to realign the audience there, but that's kind of the genesis of the whole rebrand there. And then again, I'm separating myself kind of from those like manosphere type spaces, although I am doing a dating course right now, but it's going to be a building block to where like, all right, here's my dating framework. It works really well for me. It's more so I'm an online marketer by trade. So like it's a digital makeover, which requires a physical makeover first. Then I'll do a guide like how to learn Spanish really quickly, like an accelerated language instruction course. Then probably a fitness product. I used to be a fat guy, and now I'm not. And then eventually, like putting it all together, like the Gringo's Guide to Speaking Spanish and Slaying Senoritas is like kind of like the working idea. Cool. There.
Do you think you're going to do a book ultimately with like an accompanying podcast? Or are you going to keep it just a short form content, or?
I think I'll do a book, because on this digital makeover / dating course, I'm still trying to figure out how to brand it, because the way my mind works, like, oh yeah, I'll just do these few modules and I'll hit these things and just a real clear cut path. And then it ends up becoming like, it's a college level course. I'm recording it, and I'm putting hundreds of hours into it. It's like, okay, this is going to end up being like a college level course.
There you go. That's cool.
Look at the word count. It's like 50,000 words. And every time I go to record a video, hold on, I got to add this. Oh, I didn't mention that. Let me reorganize this. So like, I have enough for a book. So yeah, I think I'll probably have to do a book too. And the idea now is like start creating a body of work, so then I can start getting on new podcasts, and then I have something behind me to back it up. Rather, before I was kind of tied to that one brand that I was affiliated with, and really I think I tapped that well at one point. Like anyone who's going to be a Jaren Scott fan with that audience has already become one, has already become a friend, and really just getting on week after week, day after day, and just kind of bringing in the same message. I'm like, well, like, what else is there to say, guys? Like if you want girls to like you, like, be in shape, like, dress decently, like, have good online photos. If you like, if you want online matches, like, you can only say that stuff so many times. So for me, I felt like it was kind of holding me back, and I want to get out there and again showcase other parts of my personality. And in a former life, I was a nerd. So the minute you brought up, like, ghosts or like, I think I brought up, you asked the Halloween question. I brought up aliens. I'm like, oh, dude, I used to love aliens. Like that was a big part of the collective psyche where I grew up, because it was a hot spot. There was so much of that activity as a kid, and
the nice thing is you can like
I forgot all about that until you asked. I'm like, oh yeah, that's a part of me.
And the nice thing is you can literally talk about that pretty much endlessly. I mean, if you look at like, you know,
not
Travel Channel and
Shadow Band,
A&E and Sci-Fi Channel, it's like it's just literally endless.
There,
and you go down the rabbit holes on YouTube. It's like literally endless, and it's fun to talk about, and it's fun to like get the gears turning and wonder, you know.
Well, I'm starting to do some content in Spanish too, and Spanish audiences really like me. They always like white guys that speak Spanish well, because it's like, ooh, we can get into their brain, like we can know what they really think, and I don't hold back. And
good, man.
Thank God Spanish is not a PC language, like, so you can, like, I could be more honest in Spanish than I can in my native language, which is weird. Okay.
That is weird.
And then I also have a buddy staying here with me too, so like I'm getting to. He's having like the new intercultural experience that I had 20 years ago. So I'm getting to relive that through his eyes. And a lot of questions are coming up, which is making the content really easy to do. A lot of the intercultural stuff. My background academically was in that. I've worked in change management a lot in my career. Worked for one of the big four as a consultant for the last few years in like LATAM type markets. So now I get to bring kind of more of me into the content rather than just being tied to like very niche topics that the algorithms don't like too much.
That's great, man. That's good. Congrats. I mean, keep it going. Like, send all, you know, definitely, we'll drop all your links down below and everything so people can continue to follow you and watch the channel grow. It's super exciting. Mm-hmm. I did want to ask one fitness question. I know we don't want to harp on that too much, but I know you're very, in good shape, and you have different like training regimens you share with people. What would you recommend to, someone like, just the average dude or someone like myself? Let's say you want to go from zero to hero. You want to go like, in like 6 to 7 months, get jacked. It's like, obviously it's like there's the eating right and the hitting the gym and everything like that. But I guess the question is like, what's your key to consistency?
Yeah, for the first 6-7 months, there's definitely levels to it, as there is everything. You level up to one, like, and then you unlock a new level and there's new considerations. So 6 to 7 months, most guys I work with are on the overweight side. So they find a video series I did in the early days of my channel called Fat to Fit. So most of them are guys that are significantly overweight, have a lot of body fat to lose, but a lot of them are really strong too. So usually I tell them, just focus on getting the body fat off. Yeah, like, you shouldn't be slamming donuts. You shouldn't be eating pizza every night or like ice cream endlessly. Start tracking your calories, and then after you figure out what calories are and how they work with your body, then figure out what your macronutrients are currently and then what they should be based on your goals. Usually for fat loss, it's lower carb, moderate to higher amount of protein, and then whatever you need, like body fat, dietary fat wise. And a lot of guys, I'll just tell them like, hey, like, really, to lose weight, you just don't eat as much. And for the naturally bigger guys, I'm a naturally bigger guy, so like I don't really ever lose muscle. So for me, if I want to lose fat fast, I just don't eat a lot. Now for skinnier guys, there's much different considerations. My buddy living here with me, I started to bulk with him just to kind of walk him through the process. And for me, when I eat a lot, I get big. I get really big really fast, and I get fucking strong too. So I'm going through that. We're a week and a half into our bulk. I'm trying to do a lean bulk, but I'm having a hard time eating all the calories. So today we ordered a dozen of donuts and just slammed them, went to the gym, and I was stacking out some of the, I was touching weight that I haven't touched in years because I haven't done a dedicated bulk in forever. And I'm like, wow, like it really is, you have to learn how to view your food as chemistry. It's really just all chemistry. It's an energy equation from a caloric standpoint. Macronutrient is like, okay, different macros do different things when you eat them at different times. So it's really just kind of learning how the body works, what works for you. So I always advocate start measuring everything, and then that way when you throw variables into the routine of the diet or the recovery, then you can start to see how it affects your body. And I've tracked everything for so many years that I pretty much know what I need to do to achieve whatever I want to do whenever I want to do it. So it's just about collecting that data. And in terms of consistency, do things you like. So a lot of guys especially the weight loss guys. For me, when I want to stay lean, I do 1 meal a day intermittent fasting. And people get religious about their diets to where like, oh, you should never do that, or like, oh, you should always do that. Like, leave all that shit aside. They're just all tools. So like when you try something, like if you do keto, you have to get fat adapted. You will get the keto flu for the first couple of days, but once you're fat adapted, then your body has that switch it can flip on and off. And so it's really about trying new things, collecting new tools, putting them in the toolkit, and then the more tools you have, the more leeway you have to really just kind of craft your physique in whatever way you want. And then consistency is a huge one. So I always say, like, if you're mapping out a new routine, do lifts that you like doing, do things you enjoy doing, eat foods that you enjoy doing. When you get people that say, oh, I'm going to join this, I'm going to join, because they treat diets like a cult. So I'm going to join this fitness movement and only eat this thing, and I'll never eat these things for whatever reasons. And like, no, don't do elimination diets.
Yeah.
Like all natural food was put here on the planet for a reason. Your body, unless you have like allergies or like you're lactose intolerant or something weird like that. But like everything here is for a reason. Use it all as tools, and then figure out the best tools or the building blocks that you need to build, or, if you're losing weight, to get to the level of achievement that you want to unlock for your physique. And then again, once you get there, you get a little better each time, and then you get more experience and you add more tools to your toolkit. And then you eventually, I've been at the point for years where I just kind of dialed it in. I don't really have to think about it anymore. Although I am surprised myself with this bulk. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna eat all these calories that I haven't eaten in so many years, because like I was a fat guy before. It's like, I don't want to get fat again. I want to stay fit. And then immediately I started dropping weight. So like my muscles started filling out. I immediately got stronger. Then I dropped a couple of kilos, and then now it's kind of leveled back out. I'm like, well, if I can keep eating like this and stay the same weight, then I might just do that.
Ooh, dangerous, yeah.
So Jaren, you're doing still, even with your bulk, are you still doing intermittent fasting and 1 meal a day?
So what I'm doing is kind of like some more advanced type stuff. So I do carb cycling and calorie cycling. So I'm only a week and a half into it. I'm adjusting as I go and then measuring the results. So I track all my workouts, track all my lifts, make sure I'm doing progressive overload. I'm getting stronger, split over split. Track my weight every day, track how long it takes me to do the workout. So today, my progressive overload between the last arm day and today, I went considerably higher, but I took a lot more rest time. So it was a 20-minute longer workout. But I'm getting to the point where I'm starting to stack out a lot of the machines and a lot of like the stuff I have in my gym. So once you hit your limit, and I have old sports injuries too. So like once my elbow kind of started bugging me a bit, like it's not in injury territory, but it'll start getting there. Once I hit that threshold, then I'm not going to go any higher in weight. Then it's about time. So I time my workouts too. And then again, once you have all these data points, you can start playing around with things. So today I was like, you know what? I'm going to eat a bunch of donuts after my workout. Felt pretty good. Like I'm filled out right now, but that was to refuel glycogen in stores. So now if I were to eat a box of donuts now before I go to bed, well, that's all going to go to my belly. So it's really just learning how the body works in general, how your body works specifically, and then just figuring out the tools, the timing, the protocols, all of that stuff, and then how it fits for you. So I always say it's kind of like a self-discovery journey. The longer you're in it, and the more you track everything, the more consistent you are, the more insights you gain. But for the first 6 to 7 months, just start moving, start tightening up your diet, start to understand how your body works, understand what goes in calorically wise, food wise, versus what's out in terms of expenditure. TDE is your total daily expenditure of energy. So learn how to figure out all these numbers, and then start to create a baseline for yourself. And then once you have that baseline locked in, then you can start playing around. So nice. I'd say the first 6 to 7 months is really forming new habits, getting rid of bad habits, and then starting to really, it's more self-discovery, I think.
That's the hardest part, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I definitely want to get back in shape. There was a point where I was in pretty good shape a few years ago, and then just let it slide, eating bad. But it's like I'm gradually trying to get back in the gym, eat more salad, eat more protein. But yeah, definitely want to get back up to a good point, But it's tough falling back into that routine for sure. I did have one more question too. I know you said obviously everyone's different, as far as our bodies and what works and what doesn't. But I have heard from different people about like eating something right before you work out, like a Rice Krispie treat or something like that, to kind of give you this like sugar and carb boost before you work out, versus some other people who are like, nah, just work out fasted. Go in and let's work out fasted. Make sure you work out in a fasted state. What are your thoughts on that for before your workout?
I've done both. So when I'm trying to stay leaner, so my muscles won't be as full because you need glycogen in your muscles, which you get that from your carbohydrates. So today we did that. We ate donuts before and after workout. After workout, we had like a giant pasta too. So that's really to, and going back to kind of your previous question, I'm doing carb cycling and calorie cycling. So for me, if I overdo carbs, I will get fat very quickly. My body is also prone to retaining water, which could look like fat, although it's not your actual adipose tissue, but you still get that like kind of, I call it slop. You get that sloppy look.
Yeah.
So I'm doing more carb cycling to where I can do dirty carbs before and after workout. Before workout, it's to fuel the workout. After workout, it's to recover for the workout because you have that anabolic window right when you put down the last weight. And today I was failing at every set, and then I burn out, like literally to the point where I can't like lift a 2-pound dumbbell anymore. So I'm depleting my glycogen stores, and then I eat a couple of donuts and I have a big plate of pasta. Well, and a lot of people get confused. You're like, oh, carbs equal fat. Well, yeah, if you're not training, but like your body is very perfectly intelligently designed to where like your body's not going to send a signal to take that pasta and that donut and add stores of fat when you literally just destroyed your muscles. Like there's a hierarchy in terms of things your body takes care of. Fat is just stored energy, but when you destroy your muscles, your body's going to take priority in rebuilding those and repairing those. So that's what you want to do. You can do your simple carbs. A lot of bodybuilders do Rice Krispie treats. I eat, if I'm shy on carbs for the night, I've got 7 boxes of Rice Krispie cereal here. I'll sweeten it with stevia. So before bed, I don't do sugar or anything. I don't want that insulin spike, and that'll give me real shitty quality of sleep. I'll have weird dreams. I'll wake up feeling groggy. But before the workout, and my buddy actually hasn't eaten sugar or carbs in like 3 years. He's like, oh, I don't know. I was like,
Damn.
It's not going to matter. You're not going to get that sugar spike and fall because it's just going right to the workout. And then after the workout, it's going right to recover the immediate damage you did.
So he didn't get sick or anything after that gap of not having sugar or carbs? All the donuts didn't fuck him up?
No, because I mean, you do get that insulin spike, and you do get kind of an upset stomach because I'm used to not eating that stuff. So I kind of felt lethargic for a few minutes. But your body knows what to do with it. As far as a nutrition partitioning standpoint, yes, sugar is terrible for you. It is poison. You shouldn't eat it. But if you take it right after a grueling workout, it's going to jack up your insulin, which essentially sends a signal for your body to shuttle the nutrients in your bloodstream into your cells. So usually carbs and fat don't mix. It depends on the ratio. For me, I'm naturally a bigger guy, so I do like a 2-to-1 carb to protein ratio. Try to keep the fat minimal, and again, it's just pure sugar. I mean, it could be gummy bears. Today it was donuts, so I got a little fat in there. But it just spikes your insulin, so your body shuttles the protein into the damaged cells, and it kind of speeds along that process.
Nice.
But later in the night, like tonight, I go back to kind of my original diet. So I'm eating so many calories right now as part of this bulk that I'm adding those extra calories, which are mostly carbs that I typically don't eat in the diet. I'm stacking those on the front end and back into the workout, and then in the evening, I just do like my 1 meal a day fasted, which is pretty much lower carbohydrates, higher in protein, moderate amount of fat, just to kind of keep my body at baseline. So like I'm throwing this like insane stimuli at it, but I'm giving it the energy it needs to fuel the workout and recover from the workout, take a break from eating, and then at night I just eat like I normally always do. So I think that's why I'm getting away with eating so much more, but actually like not gaining or losing any weight. So I'm trying to do what's called a true recomposition. It's really hard to do for new weightlifters. You can do it because your body hasn't listened to new stimuli. You're activating processes that it hasn't done before. You're turning on certain, I guess, genetic traits that may have never been activated before or have been dormant for a long time. So you will get an overcompensatory effect if you're brand new to the gym. They call it newbie gains, and a lot of guys, they'll be like, oh, I've never lifted weights, I want to do steroids. Like, you don't need them. Your first 6 months, you're going to get better results without steroids naturally because your body's like, holy fuck, what's going on?
Yeah.
And it just turns on all these biological processes, and like you get really big really fast. So
Nice.
I feel like that's kind of happening to me. I've been on TRT for years, but lower doses of it, just where I need to be biologically. But adding this new stimuli, like all these carbs I don't normally eat, and then like really overloading the weight and like beating the shit out of myself. I'm like, wow, like I'm actually doing a recomp, which I didn't necessarily know I could do before. But we're just a week and a half into the bulk, so like I'll adjust as we go. If I start getting fat, I'll back off. I have like certain thresholds I set for myself. Like once I get to a certain body fat level, it's time to cut. But I've been doing it for so long, and I'm so flexible about it that on the weekends, like this last weekend, like I'm just gonna fast all weekend. So did the bulk during the week, but during the weekend, like I'm tired of eating too. It's like for most people, it's like I'm gonna give my body a break by eating. For me, it's like I'm gonna give my body a break by not eating, because my baseline is typically the extended fast. So this seems to be working out. Again, we're just a week and a half into it, but I track everything, and then I have new insights. So 3, 4, 5 years, whatever it is in the future, I'm like, hey, I did this one time. Look at my logs. This is what I did. And then, I can combine this with this tool I learned from this other bulk, and I want to do this cut. And then you kind of start like stacking it together. It's like when you guys are like edit your videos. You have the multiple tracks, and you have like the cuts and like the segues and all that stuff. Like writing a song, you can layer things on top of it. So I kind of view it in the same way as that. It's kind of a creative endeavor if you view it from that
That's
aspect.
really cool. Wow. Yeah.
That's great, man. Well, if I need any advice, I'll just DM you. I'll be
Yeah.
like, hey. That's great, man. Thank you for sharing that insight, though. That's awesome.
Yeah, you're welcome.
That's badass. I feel like you had a question. I cut you off.
Oh yeah, I did. So yeah, going back to the point that just changing your habits is the hardest part.
That is, yeah.
I got pretty skinny a few years ago, but it was only because I was really
Into
depressed. Yeah, into meth and really depressed.
Yep.
The double whammy.
Joke.
But no, yeah.
Meth, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so like I just
Meth is a good weight loss aid, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would not advocate
Not
that.
advocating.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just naturally, I was sad. I stopped eating. I got skinny. That was great. It was a nice side effect of that, but obviously it's not a lasting thing. And then, like at work, if I'm stressed, there's a Taco Bell down the street, and that's gonna make me feel better. So like, how do you get mind over matter, and take the charge of your, what you think you need and what you are addicted to.
Yeah. That's a weak spot for me
Yeah.
too. The instant gratification thing with the fast food and stuff.
Yeah, I think you have to reframe some internal thoughts there. So the instant gratification thing, I literally just recorded a module for my dating course on the fitness thing. So Aubrey Hepburn said back in the day that nothing tastes as good as feeling skinny. I modify that for like no food is as good as being jacked. Like now, for a lot of guys, if you've never been there before, then it's completely foreign to you. It's like you don't even know what that sounds like. Oh, fucking musclehead talking or whatever. But when you do get there, and then you have that new set point in your brain, you're like, well, it feels a lot better being fit than it does being fat. So like, why? Like when I have clients come to me like, hey man, I'm 100 pounds overweight, and I've tracked my diet for so long. I'm like, for me to put on 100 pounds of body fat, that would be like years of me like just completely disregarding my body, not lifting, like feeling depressed, sleeping like shit, like eating to the point where I'm sick and just keep going. So understand, like to get to that point, you had to build these bad habits over the longer term, and to go the other way, you have to start doing these bad habits. Like, okay, yeah, that donut sounds really good, but I'm going to like my stomach's going to hurt, and I'm going to like have maybe a sugar headache afterwards. I'm going to feel tired. Like for me, it feels better to not feel tired than it does to have a donut. So I'm just not going to have a donut. And then when you start doing that, and you can start progressively. So like, okay, maybe cut out full sugar sodas and start doing diet sodas. Well, people say, diet soda's not good for you either. Like, yeah, but it's less bad than full sugar soda. So start there. Instead of doing like donuts and ice cream for dessert, like go down your health foods aisle and like find an ice cream that's maybe sugar free. Or if you like candy, start doing like sugar free candy, and then you slowly start. I don't want to say cutting stuff out, but you slowly start readjusting your diet, because you're like, oh, this feels pretty good. I wonder what I can do to make me feel better. Okay, well now I know this. Okay, well what's the next step? And then that kind of becomes its own addiction, to where like if I don't go to the gym for a few days, and like sometimes I just don't feel like going, but if I don't go for a few days, I start to feel pretty shitty. Like everything's out of whack. So it's not just like, yeah, gym's a big thing, diet's a big thing, but like start adjusting other habits too, and then they all kind of like feed into each other. Where I know at the end of it actually took me years to do this after I lost all the weight. I still consider myself a fat kid, so I had a lot of anxiety around that. I had a lot of anxiety about food, like, oh, can't miss the gym, like, oh, got to time everything perfectly. And then once I formed a new identity, like it happened when I was in my early 30s, and like I've been fit longer than I've been fat. So like biologically, my body's baseline is for me to be fit, so I don't really have to worry about getting fat again. So now I can kind of relax things. I can enjoy life a bit. And yeah, I will have days where I'll like go do a Chinese buffet, but the next day I'm like, ugh, I feel kind of gross. And then 2 days later, I'm just right back at baseline. So it's consistently and over a long period of time, just starting to change habits, just bit by bit. And you'll get a lot of guys like, all right, like they buy all the gear and they like throw away their whole pantry and they like do all the food and like, all right, got it. And then they get like 3 days in and they get burned out. I'm like, well, yeah, you're putting your body in shock. Your body wants to maintain homeostasis. So you slowly have to nudge it into that new baseline of that state of what homeostasis is going to be.
Yeah. Okay.
Dude, solid. You
Yeah.
make me want to work out. I'm like, I got time to hit the gym.
Right?
Shit, let's go.
I do too. Well, donuts aren't good. So I'm like, oh, I get to eat more donuts tomorrow because like
There you go.
I have to build. Yeah.
Yeah.
So have to eat donuts. I'm trying to build muscle, which is funny for people that don't get it. Like I'm sure we were sitting at the patio today, like slamming down pasta and donuts, and like the Mexicans aren't like typically the largest people in the world, so they're walking by some of my buddy, like all pumped up and stuff, just slamming donuts, and they're probably like, oh, well, are donuts healthy? Like, no. You have to understand how the body works and why we're eating that when we are eating it and what purpose that serves.
You're like, this is how you get jacked, guys. Come on.
Yeah, but for skinny guys out there, yeah, you can get away with that. You can dirty up the diet a bit.
That's great.
Interesting.
That's
Wow.
great. Great questions.
Yeah.
That was awesome. Jaren,
Yeah, it's been a good conversation.
dude, it's been a great talk. Yeah, we're gonna start wrapping up pretty quick here, but I was gonna ask
let's do it.
you, did you have any topics or questions or anything you wanted to throw out before we go to the closing talk?
I mean, yeah, just some pitches. You guys already mentioned I did the brand change, starting to like kind of pull away from the manosphere type stuff. But I am well known for like the online dating topics. I'm building a course right now. It'll release end of November. I think I'm going to announce it. Well, I'm announcing it now technically, but it'll be open for purchase that week before Thanksgiving. So maybe like Black Friday, Cyber Monday, whenever. So somewhere around there.
Nice.
And that's really more just kind of like a personal makeover course, like in the physical sense. So like getting your physique together, getting your style together, getting just like your general like analog brand together to then translate that to the digital world. So like optimize your dating apps, your Instagram. Then there's all of the opening sequences. Texting is for logistics sequences. So really, again, it's just, I use this analogy the same as I do in fitness. It's building a toolkit. So here's all the tools in the toolkit. And then the goal of the course is to have the digital makeover, present the best version of yourself on the dating apps and online, and then actually building a structure, a blueprint for how you're going to run these. Like, what do you want your dating life to look like? I get a lot of coaching clients like, yeah, man, I want to be better at dating. Like, well, what does that look like? Do you want a girlfriend? Do you want a wife? Do you want to have like a large rotation? Do you want to have a main girl with like 2 side chicks? Like, what does that look like? And then once they define that, then we can start building the structures for them. So that's really what that course is going to be all about. Again, coming out mid to late November. And then we actually launched a new group, since I've disassociated from the previous brand that I was fairly prominent on for the last few years. Similar in nature, like men's self-help, self-improvement community, but really it's more about like really helping each other build each other up in terms of like business, fitness, finances, dating, all that stuff. And then there's some unique features there to where members can sell memberships to the community for a monthly recurring commission. Members can sell other members' courses, business services. So it's a couple things. Like, yes, it's a men's community. Yes, it's where premium content can go to where it's not filtered or censored. It's raw. But it's also a large affiliate, professional, and sales network too. So like guys that want to come in, if you want to sell stuff through the network, that's kind of the idea. I don't want to say like pyramid scheme or MLM. It's definitely more than that, but there's really something for everyone in there. If you want to come and just hear us do weekly workshops and shoot the shit uncuffed, fantastic, that's for you. But if you're a young kid and managing my previous group, I got a lot of young kids on calls or I got a lot of like new immigrants to the US and Canada, like, hey man, I'd love to join, but like that's a high price point, I don't have it. So we priced it really low. It's $50 a month introductory rate. That's going to go up progressively as the group grows. So get in there now. Trying to build some momentum, and then we're trying to figure out the technical infrastructure too for building out the affiliate programs and systems. But we had our first call today. Have a good group of guys already starting off, and I'm looking to scale that thing very quickly. So that was the goal too. Is like we want this group to be scalable. We want it to go across a variety of content spaces, not just be tied to the manosphere and red pill, and have more mass market appeal, and really just trying to help guys level up in all areas of their love and life. And a lot of the spaces that I've been in before, it's kind of like, well, here's the way to do things, and if you don't do it this way, then you're not a part of this. Like, well, no, everyone's different. Everyone wants different things in life. So as long as we all come in the mutual understanding that we're going to help build each other up, and we're going to build this thing far and wide, then I think we're going to have a lot of success in there. It'll be quite fun. So, guys, if you want more information on that or my course, feel free to reach out to me at Gringo Guides on Instagram, or I'm sure you guys will drop the links down in the video.
Everything will be down there.
Links will be below.
Continue that discussion.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yep.
seems like a great way to
That's really great, man.
to network.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I like that outlook a lot. That's really smart, and I think it'll be productive for everyone involved.
I think so. Yeah. I'm quite excited. It is a much lower price point than the previous group I managed, so I'm like, ooh, like I'm gonna need a lot more sales. But we designed it to where the group can build upon itself. It's
Sure.
much more scalable.
Yeah, and over time you probably have different levels and things, but it's good. A
Yep.
good entry point for sure.
Yep. Yeah. We're at the ground floor right now, so it's like building a skyscraper. We've got the first floor built. So if my buddy, he made the analogy years ago. He's like, it's like building a grain silo. So you build like the first level, and then you hoist it up, and then you build a level underneath it, and you hoist it up. So this is a ground floor, but if you get in at the ground floor, you're actually going to be the top floor. Like as this thing grows, so the time to get in is now. Prices are only going to go up. Demand's going to go up. I was real pleased with our first call. We had near 100% participation. So for me, I'm all about momentum. So as long as we can keep that energy going and driving things forward, people talk. It's a small world. So that's how we get it out there. We're going to build out some sales and marketing collateral. And then again, highly encourage members to sell the memberships, to refer friends, to develop their own products and courses and services and businesses within the group, and then use the network to grow, that area of their life too. So there's a lot of cool features in there. We're just getting started, but I'm really looking forward to see where this thing takes
It's great,
us.
man. Yeah.
Hell yeah, man. Link below. Check it out.
Yeah, exactly.
And
yeah.
for everybody else, if you guys are new here, if you're just joining for the first time, definitely give us a like and subscribe. Consider joining the Patreon. We have the link below for the Patreon. We have shirts if you want a sick shirt like the one that Jaren is rocking right now, designed by yours truly. Those are
This shirt is so sick.
Thank you. Those are available below. We got a merch store down there. And also check out our second channel, Unfazed Frights. Starting to get more momentum on that channel, and I have some new content going on there this October, definitely. So stay tuned for that. Anyway, guys, Jaren, thank you so much for joining us,
Thank you,
man.
man.
Appreciate you.
It's a pleasure, guys. Likewise, I always enjoy our conversation. I'm looking forward to this coming out.
Me too,
Thank
man.
you.
We'll have to do a part 3 very soon. But thank you again,
We will.
man. And make sure you guys remain unfazed and have a wonderful rest of your October.
Yep. Take care.
Thanks.